Do you know anything about letterpress printing at all, or movable type?
Her daddy used to
My
work.
dad used to work Harris Intertype in Brooklyn.
Oh wow, amazing. Okay. Well, so you know probably a little bit about the history, or at least the machinery and the tools involved. But in the West, the system of movable type, the concept of movable type, where each letter is its individual piece, and you can move them around however you want, spell whatever you want, was invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the late 1400s. And then he invented a printing press to go along with it, which was based on a wine press. So it was a big screw post, and you turn the screw and the pressure would come from above, and there would be a frame around it. But instead of a little bucket where you put all the grapes, they had a table underneath it, and you'd set your letters and you'd type everything up, and then you would ink it with these basically little bushels of cotton on the end of sticks, and you dab them in the ink, and then you dab it all over the design. And those were called dabbers. And then you would put the paper down, and then you'd slide it underneath the press, and you'd turn the screw, and the top would come down and make the pressure, hence letterpress. And then they'd undo it, peel the print back, and do the same thing over and over again. Eventually, they invented in the 1860s or so, they invented what's known as the platen press, or a clamshell press, where it opens and closes like a clamshell. And this allowed, this is right during the Industrial Revolution, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So everything was about efficiency and speed and cast iron, So this sped up printing even more. And so eventually all you had to do was put ink on the press and feed paper in and out after you would set up the letters and all that stuff. But while you're setting type, each letter would be an individual piece of metal, so like that. And the letters would be backwards mirror image, right? And if you can see, it's all, the little individual pieces. And you've probably seen in people's homes, they have these type of drawers, but they have the little boxes in them instead. And a lot of people hang them on their walls and put little tchotchkes and stuff in them. But those are called type cases, and they would be in a big cabinet called the type cabinet. And each of those little boxes is for a specific letter or character. So you knew, if you memorized that, you knew where you could get the capital A and the lowercase b and all that stuff. And you could, if you memorized it, you could do it pretty fast. And there's the layout. One of the original layouts was all the capital letters would be at the top of the drawer, and all the small letters would be at the bottom. And that's where we get uppercase and lowercase from, because the capital letters, the uppercase, would be at the top part of the case, and so forth. So a lot of phrases that we get. If you've ever heard the phrase "out of sorts," you're like, "I'm out of sorts." Well, the individual letters as a group are called sorts, and so and you only have a finite number of letters in your type case. So if you run out of a letter E and you need 5 more E's, well, you're out of sorts. So everything's a little screwy, So that's one of the phrases. You ever hear the phrase "mind your P's and Q's"? Well, that is because there's a fake news about where that's from originally. Some people said it was originally from "mind your pints and quarts" in in bars and stuff like that in the old day, but that's not true. It's from lowercase letters here, because everything here is mirror image. So if you're looking at a lowercase p and a lowercase q, they look like, if you're not familiar with it being mirror image, a lowercase p looks like a lowercase q in reverse. So mind your P's and Q's is basically make sure you're not using a Q instead of a P. You could also say the same thing about mind your lowercase B's and B's, but that didn't hold on, that didn't stick.
Thank you so much.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When I was in school, they had Mimeo machines. How did that come to be?
I think that uses similar in terms of there's raised letters a little bit, but there's that has to do with carbon. So it picks up the carbon and presses the carbon through, and so you could set up the little letters on the mimeograph, and then you'd have carbon paper that you would feed through it, and then it would be a lot faster because it's just using pressure, no ink involved anymore. Yeah, it's much like a thermal printer today where they just use heat to press the letters through.
Mimeo.